Okay, it is 2:07, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we will kick off our training today with an update from Jason Welty on the jury management changes. So, Jason?
Thanks, Marlene. This is going to be a very quick update. It's going to be a teaser for what we're going to share later on in a budget committee meeting, probably the June committee meeting, because I don't think we're quite ready for May. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here and show you what we're anticipating doing for the jury management as it relates to the changes to jury management in Senate Bill 838. The bill was passed by the legislature during the most recent session, and we're waiting on the governor's signature. But if the governor signs it, the jury management process will go from a advance and reconcile model to a straight reimbursement model. And this is a change that I think will make things a lot easier for the clerks. It's one where it will definitely eliminate at least 4 reports a year. So there will be no more jury management estimate form. So we will just have a reconciliation or an actual expenditure / reimbursement form. And that's what I'm going to show you now. So hopefully you can see what I have here on the screen. And for those of you who fill this form out, you should basically recognize this as our jury management expenditures form, our actual expenditures form. All we've done is we've taken this form that we have previously done and we've modified it just a little bit for the reimbursement process. So as you go through here, you can see the clerk personnel cost. This is still the same. This is all of your managers, supervisors, deputy clerks that have a jury-related function. You will capture their costs, their salaries here in these columns, and then we go down to the operational cost. Again, these are all the same: postage, printing, supplies. So these are all your summonses. It's not your jury management software, or parking, but it's all the costs that are related to everything related to the operational cost of jury management. And then again, we are very similar here. It's the per diem for the jurors, the $15 per diem or $30 per diem. And then if there's anything that is an unspecified amount between 15 and 30, that you can put that into the other columns, but we ask that you put the description of that amount on row 48 below. Grand juror payment, the same thing, 15 and 30 here on grand juror. And then this is where we start to get into some of the changes. So on line 31, we have meals. Previously, the actual expenditure report asked you to break out the expenditures of meals by breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We felt like that was an unnecessary step, and we felt like that if we just roll that up into one line, it would be a little bit easier for all of you who are filling this report out. And then we combined that with lodging because, as you know, on our operational budget, when we ask you to do the costs for jury management, we ask you to we combine meals and lodging into one line. So hopefully that will be a little bit easier for you, just both from the operational budget standpoint as well as from filling out this form to get your reimbursement. So all of those things total up down here on the bottom, and you get the total reimbursement, reimbursable jury management cost here on line 37. So this is going to be what you're going to fill out after September 30th. So the jury management process starts July 1. And so you will take what your expenditures are from July 1 to September 30th, and that should be what you will report to CCOC on October 20th on line 37 here on October 20th. Now, one of the things that I do want to mention, and this is the reason why I wanted to put this on this call today, was this line right here, this box right here in F40. This is the Jury Management Funding Quarterly Reimbursement Request from JAC. This right here will be what is your cash position, or what is your amount available that you have from previous quarters. And this should be from not the way our jury management has been done in the past. We used to calculate this for you, and we would take the last 2 quarters, and we would take what your expenditures were versus what you actually received from JAC. But this should be how much money do you have currently sitting on hand that is for jury, that it was from the jury management distribution. And that should be what you include as in this box right here. Because this box right here controls what comes next. So if I were to change that to 0, you can see you had requested $27,000 from JAC for the months of July through September, but because you had $10,000 sitting in your bank, you only received, your request was reduced down to 17. This right here is basically what I'm going to call as our jury reconciliation, if you will, because after this point, we should not have an amount that actually, we won't do any more reconciliation. It's not going to be like we used to, where we reconciled every quarter, where you got a little bit more this quarter versus what you received last quarter. It's going to be on a reimbursement basis, and that reimbursement, once the $11.7 million is gone, it's going to be incumbent upon you to pay for your jury management costs out of your CCOC revenue. So that's the one thing that I definitely want to highlight here is this cell F40, that I really need everyone to take a look at where their jury, the jury dollars are and how much they have spent, and make a note that as of the June 30th date, how much do you have versus, and that will feed into how much you will receive in that first quarter. These lines here, lines 39 through 42, these are all new, and I'm just giving you a preview. This form has not been formally approved, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that as we transition to, as long as the governor signs the bill, we will transition into this reimbursement process where you simply ask for how much you need each quarter to be reimbursed for what the jury management fund or jury management activities that you did, and then that will then feed into this here of what the request was. The process will be similar to the old process in terms of you will send it up to us, and then we will send it over to JAC. And as long as there is enough revenue, then JAC will make those payments. The similarity becomes where if there's not enough revenue, if there's not enough money in the quarterly release from general revenue, then CCOC will automatically prorate that down to get us to that dollar amount, so that when we submit it to JAC, it will be, that's the amount that you will receive. So what we'll do is we will take the amount that everyone submits, we will compare it to what is released in the quarterly release from general revenue, and then we will submit to JAC the amount that amount. So in a month or in a quarter where it is more than, we will prorate that down. In the quarter where it's less than, you will receive 100% of what you've asked for.
Hey, Jason, we have a question that was chatted in. Is this an okay time to ask it?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Do we need to separate $15 and $30, or should we just have to say juror payments?
So the only reason that I kept the $15 and $30 in there the way that it is now is because there have been a couple of, last year there were 4 bills that were filed that increased those $15 and $30 thresholds to 30 and 50. And when I did the legislative analysis for that, it was useful for me from a legislative analysis standpoint to say, okay, we had $100,000 $15 payments, and we had $20,000 $30 payments. So when you increase it to 30 and 50, that number is going to be X. So most counties use the split. They use the $15 and $30 split. There are a handful of counties that roll everything up together and they put it all into other. My preference is that you split it out between 15 and 30. But if your system doesn't allow, or if it just takes too much time and you can't do it, and you want to throw it all into the other row, that's okay.
Okay, I have one more question that was chatted in.
Sure.
Are we still going to have to prepare the estimate for July through September?
You will not. That is one of the benefits of no longer having the estimate. Well, let me rephrase. You will not, as long as the governor signs the bill. If the governor vetoes the bill, we will have to quickly put out an estimate form for you to fill out. But no, I fully expect the governor to sign the bill and for us to do away completely with the estimates, the estimate form that we used to do. And the other thing is that this is going to be similar to our EC report. We will put this out at the beginning of the year, and you will just fill it out as it goes. So if, and again, I'm using Citrus County as an example. If Citrus County had $10,000 on hand and they requested $17,000, and then they got $17,000, that's what they'll put in. And then you will just save this form on your systems. And the next quarter, you won't have to download a new form. We're not going to be doing that anymore. We're not going to, you will just fill out everything that's here in green and anytime, and then sending it to us by at the end of the quarter, the 20th of the next month. That will be the process that will take place. So that's a quick one. Hopefully, again, this form is not finalized. I've talked to Clerk Vic, who is our jury management costs work group chair on the budget committee. We've discussed this. I think we're pretty good. There may be a few changes, but I just wanted to give you you all a quick hitter on the changes that are coming to jury management, and make sure that you understood that an estimate form is not due in 7 days. And you don't have to worry about it because you're going to wait until October 20th to send us this new improved form. So that's all for me. If there are no more questions, I will turn it back over to Marlene.
Jason, we have one more question.
Okay.
That just came through. Will the $11 million be allocated among counties, or is it first spent? Hold on, let me reread this. Will the $11 million be allocated among counties, or is it first being reimbursed?
So it will. I don't think that we will have an allocation anymore. It's going to be similar to your 4D process, where whatever your expenditures are, they are what they are. And if the total request for a quarter is greater than $2.95 million, your request will be prorated down. So let's say your request is $100,000, but the statewide jury management is over by 5%. Instead of $100,000, you're going to get $95,000. The other $5,000 you're going to have to come out of your CCOC revenue to make up for that make up for the difference between what you requested from JAC and what JAC sent you.
Thank you. I am not seeing any other questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will stop sharing my screen now and let Marlene have the microphone.
Okay, and Jason, if you'll make sure to pass the ball back to me, please.
Oh, Marlene, you know I don't know how to do that.
Right, click on my name.
Mm-hmm.
And then make me presenter.
There you are.
There we are, great.
There you go.
Okay, and just to reiterate what Jason was saying, this has not been formally finalized. We're still in the process with it. We will be getting more information out soon with the form, with the instructions. You will have, something for you to look at in your office to make sure that you are following the guidelines that we will put out. But we wanted to give you guys a preview because we know a lot of people were asking, where's the estimate form? So we're happy to announce that provided the governor signed it, you won't have to worry about that. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. And Jason and Griffin, if you can make sure that you guys are on mute for me, please. Okay, you guys should be seeing our agenda for today. We are going to move into starting off with the website, and we're going to go over on the website, go over the forms, instructions, and then some tools. There's a revenue projection tool and an allocation methodology tool. So we're going to review that. Then I did want to make sure that we took some time to review the DFS audits. We have several counties that are undergoing that right now or maybe recently have finished. And I'll talk to you, give you some more details about that, and then we'll go into the actual budget form. So on our website, under Clerk's Budget, if you click on that, it takes you to our page where we have all of our budget information. It's been recently updated, so you'll see that it all reflects 21-22 now. And then all of this is where the operational budget information will be. After this training has concluded, we'll post the recording right down here. And then once the budget committee has determined the base budget, that will be posted right here. And then when we get into operational budget later in the year, all of that information will be below. And then the budget development tools. So our data toolbox is not completed just yet. We hope to have that done for you very, very soon. But if you were interested in old information, that's all in this archive section below. If you have auditors that come in and ask for information, all of that, the budget forms and the budget instructions are all in the archives. And you'll see that we have a separate section for just the forms, a separate section for just the instructions, and then for older budget development items. So the 17-18 data toolbox and the 18-19 data toolbox. And then we do have this revenue projection tool that Citrus County developed. They did an update that's related to COVID. But if you're just interested in what that looks like, wait just a second while it pulls up. It is this very fancy spreadsheet with all of these trend charts. And you can see how you can have enter your data by fiscal year. So you have a history of fiscal years, which obviously you can update how many fiscal years you want. The graphs will update and give you an idea of how your revenues are trending. Now, you don't have to use this. This is just a tool that we thought was very helpful to share. We're very appreciative of Citrus County for sharing that with us. And when I get into the forms, I will point out some very specific items on the form that I want to bring your attention to, just because we seem to have a lot of issues with that this past go-around when we went through our technical review. And then the allocation methodology tool. We're going to actually get into this a little bit more when we talk about the DFS audits, because this is one thing that for the last 3 years we have still consistently seen DFS finding counties that do not have an allocation methodology in place. If you remember, if those of you have already been through your audit, DFS has indicated that time study is their preferred method of a methodology to determine between court and non-court. However, you don't have to use a time study. We have several counties that use their case counts. They can determine which employee touched which cases, how many times. Sometimes they'll just take a snapshot in time, a single day. Sometimes they'll take a week-long process. Excuse me. So don't feel that you have to get stuck into the time study method of determining a methodology. However, the biggest thing that we have found with DFS is that they want something. They want some type of calculation where you have gone through and evaluated your people and their actual workload, and that you can tie that to what you enter when we get later into the year on the operational budget. We have several counties that had audit findings related to this issue because they did not have anything written, they didn't have anything in place, they didn't have any calculations. Guesses and feels do not count, and so we want to make sure that everyone is using some kind of mathematical methodology to help determine between court and non-court. And so this template was developed by Palm Beach County. Again, grateful for our counties that come up with great tools that they can share. There's 2 templates, whether you're a small county or a large county, you can choose which one to use. And as you can see, you can enter your volume, your estimated processing time in hours to the units of volume. And again, you can reach out to Palm Beach County. I can get you that information if you're interested on learning more about using that methodology. Okay, it looks like I've got a chat popping up. Okay, so the question is, do any clerks use a third party to do an allocation study? In the past, there have been clerks that have used it, although we did find that gets into one of those gray areas about what state dollars can be spent on. So if you were to fund that allocation study from your county side, that would be fine. There's no problems with that. But if you were to try and fund it from your court side, it would get kind of murky on whether DFS would find that as an allowable administrative expense. So again, when I get into the DFS audits, we'll talk more about that. So are there any questions on how the website is laid out? Okay, so we are going to move on to the DFS audits. So in your instructions, we have a summary of the DFS audits. I'm going to bring that over to the screen. There it is. Okay. So it is Appendix D. And you'll see that it is a summary of state fiscal year 2020-21. The DFS does their audits on the state fiscal year, so I provided a summary of all of those audits. I've only done it for the last couple of years, but I think I may add these to the website as just individual summaries so that you can see the past 3 years, especially for counties that are getting ready to go through the audit themselves. Each county is broken down with a hyperlink to the actual findings. If you wanted to read the full report, I just summarized what the findings were, then summarized the auditor's recommendations, and then summarized the response from the county. The biggest thing that, again, that I noticed was the allocation methodology and then unallowable expenses. So that is something that I will move back up to the instructions portion that we have seen. So statute is very clear what can be funded and cannot be funded from the CCOC funding. So if there is anything related to case maintenance, records management, court preparation and attendance, processing the assignment, reopening and reassignment of cases, processing of appeals, collection and distribution of fines, fees, service charges, and court costs, processing of bond forfeiture payments, data collection and reporting, determinations of indigent status, and paying reasonable administrative support costs to enable the clerk of the court to carry out those functions. So anything outside of those functions, whether it be via AO, whether it's something that a county ordinance has created, those cannot be funded from CCOC funds. So if you have specialty courts like teen court or veterans court, those cannot be funded because those are considered additional over-the-top functions. So you'll see down in
another one is Marlene. Another one is parking. We don't take care of parking tickets.
Correct.
And a couple of different times.
Yeah, we had that one, and then marriage, your marriage department. That is a county function. That is not on the court side. So when it comes to state government is only allowed to do what is authorized to do in law. And so this is one of the things that DFS has really been getting into the weeds with in their audits. So you can see here, those functions not specified in paragraph A, functions assigned by administrative orders, which are not required for the clerk to perform the functions of paragraph A, enhanced levels of service, which these specialty courts would be considered enhanced levels of service, and then functions identified as local requirements. So some specialty courts could be considered identified as a local requirement. So we want to make sure that as you're going through this process, especially as we prepare for the operational budget later on in the year, that we that you guys take a good look at those items and make sure that that you've applied that across the board. We have seen DFS audit on some technology issues, and a recent CCOC meeting with DFS resulted in DFS agreeing that as long as those expenditures can be considered reasonable administrative costs, and as long as they do not exceed your 10% dollars that you have on your EC report. So on your monthly EC report, we have a line that says redirected 10%. And so as long as that total dollar amount is not exceeded by your technology expenditures, they are allowable. And so I wanted to make sure that I pointed those out to you because I know technology cost is one of those areas where clerks are using to save money and to be more efficient. And then also I wanted to point out before we got into the form that we have our findings by our general counsel as an appendix item related to technology. And then, like I said, I also included a summary as an appendix item. And then for Appendix D is the statutory references, and they've been updated for 2020. So you'll find that information in the instructions. So for some of you that have filled out the form last year or before, then you understand that it's not super detailed yet, but I did want to make sure that I got this information across while we had the opportunity for budget training. And then I'm going to move the instructions off to the side. And are there any questions before I go into the actual form, starting with the revenue projection form?
I am not seeing any questions or hands. Marlene.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Okay, I'm going to bring up the revenue projection form. Hopefully everyone can see that well. If not, just drop us a note in the chat box so I can try and zoom in further if you need me to. This is the same revenue projection form that we have used for the last several years. We'll start by entering the county name in the first tab and then filling out the contact information. The contact information should be the person that we can contact should we have questions on your revenue projection. Then your projection as of date, we did see where some counties were having trouble with this. As long as it is after 6/1/21, then it's a valid date and you can enter it. And then your first one that you fill out will be version 1. You may have different iterations in your own office as you work through the process, as you go through your channels and get management approval. However, we ask that the version that you submit to us start with version 1 and that you do not change the version number unless you've either been asked by CCOC to correct your form or if on your own end you have corrections that you want to make. So if you send us a different version, then we ask that you change that to version 2, and when you send us your new submission. Okay, the first section is for the fines and forfeiture trust fund projections. So the one line is for fines, fees, service charges, and court costs. This does not include that redirected 10%, as we were talking about earlier. That is on the second line. And so it's important that we get these two amounts separated because they come in handy when Jason is getting ready to put revenue projections together for the REC meeting. If you have any notes or any information that you want to explain to us about your calculations, or if you have months that are zero that you're missing dollars from, we ask that you provide that explanation in the additional notes box. If you want to give us an example or an explanation of how you calculated your revenue projection, you can do that as well in this box. That is not a mandatory requirement, but it is helpful for us to see that. So if you want to provide that, you can. In the second section, which is the Chapter 2008-111 revenues, we know that there are some counties that cannot break these levels of detail out for these three, and sometimes they're looped under all other. We would ask that you try to break them out as much as possible because this is how we have been requested to provide the information. And so it makes it easier when we have an apples-to-apples comparison statewide. Sometimes we recognize that you may not have that ability, and so if that is the case, we ask that you provide explanation. The only time that we had to send revenue projections back for corrections is because data was missing from this section and no explanation was provided. So if you go ahead and tell us on the front end why you cannot break out those projections, that will save us when we get ready to do our technical audit. And again, if you have an explanation that you want to provide for how you determine your revenue projection, you can also provide that in the additional notes box. Okay, let me see, I think I have a chat question that came in. Oh, that one is related back to jury. We'll come back to that. We will come back to that one since that's jury. We're going to finish on the forms and come back to that. Are there any questions on the revenue projection form? Okay, so I'm going to close that. And Jason, I'm going to read this question out. If you can answer it, please, sir. It says, if I spend $100 on jury and subsequently only get reimbursed $90, I need to redo my EC report to put another $10 into my court expenditures. At year end, this is going to be problematic since we have to close our year by October 31st by statute to provide our Section 28 report to the Board of County Commissioners. Jason?
Yeah, so and this is one of the things that we are still talking about in terms of when that final quarter, the July, August, September report will be due, because the idea would be that if we could get it by the 10th, then you would know how much you have to spend from your CCOC revenue, so that you could then report that expenditure in your CCOC expenditures. But yes, if you only get, you know, and again, if it's throughout the year or if it's that last quarter, it doesn't really matter. The idea would be that if you know that we're only going to send you $90 of that $100, then you would have to transfer those expenditures to the CCOC revenue side, and hopefully we could, that's our goal, is to make sure that you can make those adjustments before the end of the year and before your closeout and your auditors come in. So that's one of the things that Clerk Vic and I talked about, which was, for instance, or perhaps for the July through September, instead of that report being due on the 20th, like most of our quarterly reports are due, that report would then be due on the 10th, giving us enough time to send it to JAC and giving JAC enough time to review it so that you would know by, by the close of October, you would have that information available to you. Any more on that? I've lost audio. I apologize.
We could hear you, Jason.
Oh, Marlene, then you must be on mute.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. The question is why we do not do monthly jury reimbursement.
I suppose we could. I thought it might be easier to do it quarterly, but monthly, I mean, if monthly is something that you'd like to see us do on jury reimbursement, we could talk. I talked to Clerk Vic and take it back through the budget committee. I just thought that because we already do the quarterly expenditures report, I thought I was going on that timeline that we do currently.
And also, we would have to work with JAC as well, correct?
I mean, we would. I mean, but JAC gets the, what would happen would be is if, again, so we get 2.9 million, or 2.95 million a quarter. So if we did monthly, then, you could have let's just say the first month is 1.5 million, the second month is 1 million, and then that means that the third month, everybody would only get a portion of $400,000. But we could definitely do that. I have not talked to JAC about it, but if that's something that the majority of the counties want to do, we could probably make that happen.
Okay, so before we move on, were there any other questions related to jury that we can wrap up so we can move on?
Marlene, it's more of a comment. It just says quarterly reports are better. This will cause more work on staff.
Okay.
And then one more just popped in. Why don't you fully fund the early quarters and then just ration the last quarter so we know what we are going to get rid of for the year?
Okay. Thank you for those comments.
I'm not sure I understand what early fund. Do you mean basically an advance in the first quarter and then not get anything?
I guess it would mean fully fund, first and second quarter, and then if you don't have enough to fund third and fourth, at least you know that every expenditure from those quarters you've got to pay for on your own.
Well, so part of the issue is that we are bound by the quarterly release. So the way that the state system works is basically the state releases 25% of the appropriation. So our appropriation is 11.7 million. They release 25% of that every quarter. So if we came out in July, August, and September and we had a $4 million quarter, I couldn't fully fund you because I only have $2.95 million of revenue available to send to the clerks. So from that standpoint, I don't know that I could. I couldn't fully fund you if you came out with a full first quarter because I don't have the 2.9. I only have the 2.95. I don't have anything over and above that.
Okay, and then we also had some more comments come in. Let me get back to the top of it. There was give us the full amount from the first 3 quarters and whatever is left is rationed out. And then, yes, clerks are going to have the upfront cost for jury now. For smaller counties, this could be an issue. Some smaller counties don't have the funds to pay the expense up front and will always be running in the red.
On that issue, I've talked to several small counties, and I recognize and understand that there may be some cash flow issues, but in the counties that I've talked to, the cash flow issues, I mean, the solution is you simply charge it to your court-related, or you charge it to your recording, or you charge it to the county, or wherever you have to charge it. But once you get that reimbursement, then you just simply JT the money back to wherever you pulled it from in the first place. So from a cash flow standpoint, I feel like there's probably not much, and again, because we will have additional dollars this first quarter, you can pretty much expect to receive everything that you request for the July through September, the July through September quarter. So it shouldn't be a problem from a cash flow or cash management standpoint. But if there is a problem, if you can come and say, look, I just don't have enough money in my general fund to cover this, send me an email, shoot me an email, and we will try to figure out something so that we can work on those cash management issues.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason. Okay, and I did get a couple of questions regarding the EC report. The revenue projection report. And yes, those months were incorrect, so I've corrected those. And as soon as our training is over, I will get it uploaded to our website correctly. So thank you for pointing that out. And then another question came in: why do we still collect the 2011 projection? And that is because RAC asked that of us. So we provide that because it is requested. Okay, any other questions on either jury or the revenue projection form? Okay, Jason, if you can make sure you're on mute, please. Thank you.
You hear my clicking? Sorry.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to the clerk certification letter. Last year, we did not require a certification letter on the budget issue form. However, we did get several questions about that, so we revamped that form. And I'm going to make this where you can see it. And so the form is basically the same certification letter that we've had in the past that outlines these are allowable expenditures, that we want to make sure that we're getting the gross budgeted costs. So even if you are getting funding from another source to help cover these costs, we still want to see the total cost. That's going to give us a good apples-to-apples comparison amongst the counties, so we know what the true gross costs are. And then that your budget issues submitted do not cover any of these areas, which are county funding areas. And again, those are the areas that we saw audits on. And then again, number 3 is the revenue to support that, which is your revenue projection form that you submitted. And so the form that you will find online is a PDF with the fillable date, and a county is a Dropbox menu for you to pick your county name. If you use an electronic signature, please make sure that that signature is visible. So it can't just say the text box that says electronic signature provided. We want to actually see the signature. Okay, any questions relating to the certification letter? I don't see any in the chat box. And let me just look really quick to make sure there's no participants with their hands raised. Okay, then we are going to move on to the actual budget issue form. This form has 5 tabs. We used it last year. And as you can see, we have entered some default information for you this year. This is something at the last budget committee meeting that was requested. It's not a guarantee that the budget committee will fund these items, but they are items that the budget committee wanted to see specifically. So for your FRS issue, we understand that there will be increases related to FRS. So we have that information pre-entered for you. You can hit the Alt and Enter button to tab on to the new line, and then that's where you will type your information here. And just provide us an explanation of how you've calculated that FRS increase. Now, this does not include FTEs. So if you add FTEs here, you're telling us that you want to increase your FTE count. If you are telling us that this FRS increase is for all your employees, you can provide us that information in the verbiage, but you would not include an FTE. You would include this information on your personnel line, and then you would tell us which of these clerk court services it would apply to. And so if it applies to all of them, you can take your total dollar amount divided by those 9 services and tell us that way. Again, on this form, when you enter your county name and your contact name and email address, those are going to carry over to the next tab. The priority box, you're going to put all of your issues in priority order for us, even though these 3 that are on this tab will be on the spreadsheet for the budget committee to review. We still want to know what your priority level is for funding of your issues. If you use more than one spreadsheet, you can go in and just delete out all of these pre-written verbiage. That's fine. That won't actually hinder anything. But just make sure that you keep track of how many total issues you have and your priority numbers so that you're not leaving any gaps and you're not duplicating any numbers. And again, you can just override any of these with whatever your new issue is. The default is obviously a funding issue, but if you have a reduction issue, if you're wanting to tell us somewhere where you're able to have a cost savings, you can do that as well. And then your issue category, these are listed in your budget instructions with an explanation of each one. If you don't find the one that you need in the items that are already there, when you click on Other, this text box appears, and then you can type it out for us. But if you can, try and find if any of these that are pre-filled apply for you.
Hey, Marlene, I have a question that was just chatted in. Do we know yet what new FRS rates will be?
I believe we do. Jason, are we still waiting on that bill to be signed?
It hasn't been signed yet, but it will. I do have, on the budget committee meeting on Monday, I have an estimate of what your FRS looks like. We will also post a tool that you can use in order to calculate your FRS in terms of what is your current FRS cost in your regular class versus your senior management class versus your clerk versus the drop class. So we also have that available. That is courtesy of Mike Murphy in Orange County. He has provided that to us. So the only one that I know off the top of my head is that the regular class went from a 10% FRS rate to a 10.82%. All of the class, that was the biggest jump. All the classes increased, but they did not increase as much as they did last year. So, but we do have that, and we do know that, and we can get that out to you. And like I said, we're going to talk about it a little bit more on Monday's meeting.
Correct. And again, these first 3 items with FRS, health insurance increase, and then judges, which I'll get into in a second, those were already requested by the budget committee at their last meeting that information be provided if it's applicable to you, but there has not been a determination of which issues they're going to adopt into the base budget. That will be at Monday's meeting. And again, for health insurance, we've got some pre-verbiage filled out, and for the judges, that's only applicable to certain counties. So if you have questions on that, on whether your county is included, you can see Jason. He's provided a great bit of verbiage that breaks it off into really good detail from the 2020 legislative session and the 2021 legislative session, which new judges were added to which counties or to which circuits.
Hey, Marlene, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Where is the FRS calculation tool?
We don't have that sent out yet. So that's what Jason just explained, that we are going to talk about that more on Monday. And so if you will tune in to the budget committee meeting on Monday and then look for that afterwards, we will get that out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And then again, hopefully at Monday's meeting, the base budget will be determined. So then counties will know exactly what their starting point is. So you will know how many issues that you may want to provide. In the instructions, I do have a naming guide for you, especially if you use more than one form. So if you have more than 5 issues outside of these 3. Again, if you're a county and you don't have the judge issue, you can delete all that verbiage and just type in your next issue right there on that 3rd tab. There's nothing prohibiting you from doing so. Are there any other questions about how to create your issue or how to enter your issue into the cells provided?
I am not seeing any hands, and I have not received any questions chatted in at the moment.
Okay. Okay, well that is all that I have. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us here at the CCOC. You can reach out to any of our budget managers. In the instructions is a timeline, which again, I will remind you that that could be changed at any point based on determinations by the budget committee, based on any legislative actions that might happen during this special session that we might need to be responsive to. So it is a guideline, that timeline that is in the instructions. But just, again, please keep in mind that things might change. So the next couple of budget committee meetings will probably be very informative and probably ones that you need at least somebody from your staff to tune into. But again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us here at the CCOC, and we will be more than happy to help you and just walk you through the process. So we're going to check one more time, Kristen, if you can look and let me know if there's any questions chatted in.
Yes, we did receive another question. Is the budget issue form due at the same time as a budget form?
Okay, so this is the budget form. This is the document that will be due June 1st. This is due with your revenue projection, and it is due with your certification letter. So all 3 of those items consist of your original budget submission, and all 3 of those are due by close of business June 1st. And if you have any problems, you can reach out to us and we can discuss those offline. And then I see another question came in asking about if we need to wait to see how we may be funded. No. So all these 3 forms need to be submitted by June 1. But just to let you know, we're hoping that at Monday's meeting we have the base budget decided. So at least you'll know your starting point, and then you'll know your starting number, and then how many issues you might want to enter to add up to what you're going to need as your needs-based budget to do your constitutionally authorized activities, which are outlined in the instructions. Okay, I've already answered that. Okay, are there any other questions you might want to chat in or raise your hand if asked? Okay, well, if there are no more questions, again, feel free to reach out to us here, and we will be happy to assist you. So thanks for a great training today.